Mercedes E-Class Estate has always been a very classy way to carry rather a lot. This W213 series model is better looking, cleverer and more efficient than ever. It's also bigger inside than rival models from Audi, BMW, Volvo and Jaguar. In short, it's a segment benchmark.
No station wagon takes the conquest of space more seriously than this one, the 10th generation W213 series Mercedes E-Class Estate. It used to be that if you wanted a large, plush, practical estate, you bought a big Volvo. For some years now, though, that role has been more completely filled by the Mercedes E-Class Estate. Rivals trade space for a bit of style, but this car continues to prioritise practicality, with 670 litres of room on offer even before you start folding seats. Now that's enough to allow Mercedes to provide something that rivals can't offer, a 7-seat option if you want it. This 10th generation E-Class Estate, of course, enjoys all the advantages developed for its saloon counterpart, a car offering astonishing technology and luxurious comfort. There are also cutting-edge driver assistance features that even allow owners to take a step closer to fully autonomous driving. The engine range too is a big step forward from the previous generation model, with a lineup of efficient downsized power plants that rate amongst the standard setters in the sector. Plus, this time around there is also this SUV-style all-terrain variant. It all sounds very promising. Time to put this car to the test. Some full-sized executive station wagons claim to be a bit sporty, BMW's 5 Series and Jaguar's XF Sport Brake, for example. Others, like this E-Class Estate, simply don't feel the need to try that hard, unless an AMG V6 or V8 happens to be beneath the bonnet, of course. It doesn't here. Like almost all E-Class buyers, we've chosen a diesel unit, although the V6 engine we're using here has less importance in the lineup than the much more modern 2-litre 4-cylinder black pump fuel power plant that was launched by Mercedes at the introduction of this W213 series model. Go for that entry-level engine and you'll certainly find that it's a lot quieter than the previous generation model's rumbly old 2.1-litre unit, and it always feels impressively smooth and free from vibration. Now that is a vital consideration when you're looking for a large estate that will waft you along with a minimum of fuss. Even under firm acceleration, this engine remains calm, unruffled and pretty quick too. There is a 150 bhp E200D model, but most will go for the E220D 194 bhp variant, at the wheel of which 62 miles an hour arrives rather more rapidly than you might expect from a relatively small capacity engine in a vehicle of this size. To be specific, the sprint occupies just 7.7 seconds, making this car nearly a second quicker than some of its direct rivals. The top speed's higher too, rated at 146 miles an hour. Should you feel the need for more power, there's the 258 bhp E350D 6-cylinder diesel variant to consider, and that's the one that we're trying right here. In this case, you're upgraded to a 3-litre unit that has the advantage of significantly greater pulling power, torque rising to 620 Newton meters, up from the 400 Newton meter figure that you get in the E220D. That helps this variant reach 62 miles an hour in just 6 seconds, en route to an artificially limited top speed of 155 miles an hour. The emissions and economy of this motor, though, mean that the majority of buyers will look to the E220D. With both these engines, there is the option of 4MATIC 4-wheel drive if you want it. That's a system that comes as standard on the all-terrain variant that we're trying here. The other key engine choices are conventional petrol-powered ones, and they come courtesy of the Stuttgart brand's Mercedes-AMG Performance division. The E43 4MATIC gets a supercharged 3-litre 6-cylinder bi-turbo unit with 410 bhp and 4-wheel drive to get all that torque down on the tarmac. Or at the top of the range, there's an E63 4MATIC model powered by the same turbocharged 4-litre V8 used in both the smaller C63 and the brand's AMG GT supercar, which in this case can put out as much as 612 bhp. These variants will suit the very few successful executives shopping in this segment who will want to regularly throw an estate car of this size around the corners. Everyone else will, we think, be quite happy with one of the diesel variants. And there's lots to like. Take the smoothness of the 9G-tronic plus 9-speed automatic gearbox that all mainstream E-Class models must have. Do you really need that many ratios? Well, doesn't just mean that the car is constantly shifting from one gear to the next. Well, probably yes, but we've been driving this car for quite a few miles now, and I can tell you that you'll be hard-pressed to know when the transmission is making a change. It's as smooth as to be almost seamless, even when you floor the throttle. There's no hesitation or delay, and the gearbox will happily drop down 2 or more gears if a quick overtake is called for. You can further fine-tune the driving experience by using the Dynamic Select rocker switch down here on the center console. Now, as the name suggests, it lets the driver alter how the car behaves depending on which mode is chosen. The usual settings that can be dialed in are Eco, Comfort, Sport and Individual, with Comfort the default one when you first start the car. In Eco, this Mercedes feels a little less eager and it selects the highest possible gear to help save fuel. In contrast, the Sport setting gives a crisper feel to the throttle, the steering and the gears, while Individual lets you tailor the car to your style of driving. While it's good to have options, we've found that Comfort has most of the bases covered and it delivers that imperious E-Class feel that makes the world feel just a little bit less frenetic and a bit calmer. With the E220D, the Dynamic Select system deals only with throttle response, steering feel and gear change timings unless you pay extra for the optional air body control suspension. This is standard on the E350D and it uses pneumatic bags in place of traditional steel springs to cushion the car from the surface. Now, this particular car has that setup and it certainly delivers a silky smooth driving experience. You're most aware of it over sharp road undulations and things like speed humps and drain covers too. For the rest of the time, the whole setup simply creates a supremely cosseting feel and it makes motorway journeys a magic carpet ride. You're going to like this E-Class if long highway journeys are a regular part of your life, and if that's the case, you're going to like the car even more if you're able to equip it with optional semi-autonomous driving technology that Mercedes has developed for this 10th generation W213 series design. Now this allows the car to pretty much drive itself, working with the adaptive cruise control and active steering system to keep this E-Class rolling in its chosen lane at any chosen speed up to 130 miles an hour, the steering wheel motoring itself right and left as it keeps the car on course. All you have to do is to make some sort of input every 30 seconds to prove that you're paying some kind of attention. If you don't, the car will warn you in no uncertain terms, and if you don't respond, it will ultimately stop itself and activate its hazards lights too to teach you a lesson. In other countries, it's possible to use the autonomous driving technology to a greater extent. That's something limited to some extent here by UK legislation. We can, though, get the benefit of something almost as good, a so-called car-to-X communication system, which allows this Mercedes to often almost magically respond to future weather or traffic conditions, or to somehow know what's around the next corner. It's not magic, of course. The setup is instead driven by a mobile phone-supported exchange of information system, which will see this E-Class sending data on driving conditions back to a central hub, which then shares it with other Mercedes drivers. And staying on the subject of smart technology, there's even an optional app which will allow you to park this Mercedes remotely with your smartphone. All of this technology is aimed at making this a safer, more relaxing car to be in. But that's not to say that Mercedes has forgotten about the basics. Point this car along a twisty stretch of road and it actually handles very well, although unfortunately a general lack of steering feel prevents you from relishing the experience, regardless of which dynamic select mode you choose. If you get beyond this and trust the car to work with you through the turns, you'll find that the chassis responses are good and the grip levels are remarkably high. Large estates from some rival brands do certainly offer a slightly more rewarding feel, but there's no doubt that Mercedes has narrowed the dynamic gap to those cars at the same time as pulling further ahead when it comes to cruising luxury. It's an accomplished showing. The looks and appearance of any car are subjective, but it's hard to argue against the assertion that this 10th generation W213 series E-Class Estate is a very handsome machine. It's a touch larger than its predecessor, with a more powerfully extended silhouette characterised by short overhangs, a long wheelbase, large wheels and taut, well-defined flanks. It is, in short, an accomplished piece of penmanship, the sober feel of the previous model now confined to history. The swept-back bonnet has been restyled so its contours merge elegantly with the smartened front end, one that sees the famous Mercedes badge incorporated between two broad slats on the front grille rather than being positioned as a mascot on the nose. The lights are single-piece LED units and they can be ordered as here in multi-beam guise with 84 individually controlled LEDs and integrated daytime running lamps. Rivals in this segment have compromised carriage capacity for sleeker styling, but Mercedes has resisted the temptation to reduce overall practicality in pursuit of lifestyle looks. Nevertheless, there's still more of a sweeping silhouette this time around and a more powerful sense of character too. The profile is defined by this dropping waist-level swage line that flows from front to rear through the door handles, while this further crease lower down sits above a distinct sill line to give the flanks some shape. The rear is characterised by these horizontal full LED light clusters and a full width chrome strip featuring just above, and a subtle roof spoiler provides a finishing touch. Take a seat inside and the cabin trimming depends quite a lot on the spec you've chosen. Entry-level models get conventional instruments and a central dash 8.4-inch monitor, but if you opt to upgrade to the Command Online system that we're trying here, well, things change quite significantly. The central display is upgraded to 12.3 inches in size, and if you pay more, you can link this to a virtual instrument display of the same size, creating one huge floating style screen that flows right across the dash and which is framed by subtle ambient lighting. The whole package is standard if you avoid the base E220D variant, and it really does look quite futuristic. Now you control it via these neat little touch pads on the 3-spoke leather-stitched steering wheel. Using these you can customise the instrument display ahead of you via 3 settings. The classic and sport layouts give you 2 dashboard dials, one of which can show a navigation map if you wish, or there's a so-called progressive display that focuses on one gauge, the bottom of which can depict a neat safety assistance graphic if required. You can set up the right of the screen to show the date, navigation information, a fuel consumption readout, or an eco display which helps you to drive more efficiently. Now anything that this setup can't tell you will almost certainly be covered off by the central fascia display. That's especially true if you've avoided the 8.4-inch Audio 20 system used on a base E220D and got yourself the optional Command Online package that's featured here. As usual, the sophisticated graphics make those of every other rival system look dull and cheap. Particularly nice are the vehicle sections that give you engine data dials and allow you to tailor your preferred driving settings via the dynamic select driving mode system. There is linguatronic voice control, and there's all the usual infotainment stuff too, of course, with 3D mapping and live traffic information. Plus, you can also connect in your smartphone via the Android Auto or Apple CarPlay systems. It's also possible to create an integrated WLAN, that's wireless local area network hotspot. In addition, this package provides a media segment, and that will give you a web browser for things like Facebook and a useful MB apps section too. Now this includes weather reports, access to internet radio, and a useful local search function which will allow you to find, well, anything from a filling station to a fish restaurant, a passenger terminal to a parking space. The command system's functionality is primarily controlled by what at first glance looks as if it might be the auto gear stick. It isn't. As usual on a mainstream Mercedes, gears are dealt with by a steering column stalk up here. Now instead, this rather futuristic looking protuberance manages with all your infotainment needs. It has a rotary dial that swivels, slides and pushes below a higher surface touchpad which will allow letters, numbers and special characters to be handwritten, although in this right-hand drive model there is the awkwardness of having to do that with your left hand. Enough on infotainment, time to focus on class and quality, and there's plenty of it on show, with build quality being predictably faultless. As usual with a modern Mercedes, air vents are used as a characteristic fascia styling feature, two larger ones at each corner and four more compact ones in the centre, below which are the controls for the ventilation. Another small group of switches further down has an analogue clock in the middle to give the dash some old school appeal. We have to mention the leather seats too. They're perfectly contoured and fitted around the driver to give ample comfort during long trips. They're electrically operated and heated on all E-Class models, of course, and in this expensive derivative you benefit from a seat comfort package that adds electro-pneumatic four-way lumbar support to help avoid any backaches. As for cabin storage, well, there's pretty much everything you'd want. This beautifully damped piano black cover conceals twin cup holders, a stowage area and a 12-volt socket. Further back, there's this large twin-lidded box between the seats with an SD card slot and two USB points. Plus, there's an overhead compartment for your sunglasses and decently sized door pockets. Time to take a seat in the rear. Now, the first thing you'll find is more than ample space. If the front passengers have their seats at the lowest setting, you might find room for your feet slightly limited, but otherwise the rear footwells are big and broad. The upholstery, that's supportively contoured too, and it holds you in a little more firmly than is usual, although that does of course mean a little less comfort for anyone who has to sit in the middle, legs splayed around this rather prominent central transmission tunnel. If there are only two of you, then this central armrest can be brought down with its lidded storage tray and neat pull-out cup holders. Now, we like the fact that the shoulder height window line removes some of the claustrophobia that you sometimes feel in rival models. With this twin panel panoramic glass roof that would be optional on a lesser E-Class model, the cabin gets a lighter, airier feel too. Twin air vents in the centre console help keep you cool, and the door bins are big enough to hold a 1 litre water bottle. Let's move around to the boot, which features this powered tailgate. Now, the hatch raises to reveal the largest luggage area in the class, rated at 640 litres. To give you some perspective on that, rival Audi and Volvo models can offer only 565 and 560 litres respectively. Small wonder that Mercedes is the only brand in the segment able to offer the option of a couple of extra boot-mounted chairs, although for some reason you can't have that on this all-terrain variant. This is a practical space too, something emphasised here by this stout rubber load liner, something that would be optional on a lesser E-Class model, as would this thicker mat too. Now, this covers a further underfloor compartment, which offers even more space, though only because Mercedes doesn't fit any kind of spare wheel. At least this area does include this useful fold-out shopping crate. On both sides of the cargo area there are bag hooks, and there's a netted compartment over here for smaller items, plus you get a 12-volt socket too. A feature that would be optional on lesser E-Class models but which is standard on this all-terrain variant is an electrically retracting tow bar activated by this button on top of the inside of the tailgate. If you are taking longer items, you'll be glad of the way that the rear bench splits 40-20-40, so you can flatten the middle section for things like skis without affecting a couple of rear-seated passengers. Now, if you do need a few precious extra litres of luggage space, but you can't flatten the rear bench, let's say, for instance, you're collecting passengers laden with bulky luggage from an airport, then usefully that rear backrest can be set a few degrees more upright in what Mercedes calls a cargo position. If you are able to flatten the main parts of the back seat, you'll do it via these neat buttons you'll find on either side of the cargo sidewalls, and you'll find further ones just inside the rear doors too. Once you've activated these, a capacity of up to 1,820 litres can be freed up. That's about 140 to 200 litres more than you get from rival Audi and Volvo models. Mercedes charges a £2,000 premium for this estate body style over what you pay for an equivalent E-Class saloon. That means a pricing span for mainstream models in the £38,000 to £52,000 bracket. The four-cylinder E220D diesel derivative forms a starting point for the range, and that's available with either base SE trim or plusher AMG line spec. If you can stretch up to a £50,000 budget, the alternative E350D six-cylinder diesel variant comes only with AMG line trim. Whichever of these two engines you choose, there's the option of paying around £1,600 more to get 4MATIC four-wheel drive if you want it. Both power plants are paired with automatic transmission. In the case of mainstream variants, the super smooth 9G-tronic plus 9-speed setup. The 4MATIC system that we mentioned comes as standard on the all-terrain derivative that we're trying here, and that is available only in E350D guise and costs around £58,000. Now, if you want one of the sporting petrol-powered Mercedes-AMG 4MATIC E-Class Estate variants, well, prices here start at around £60,000 for the six-cylinder E43, and you'll pay from around £82,000 for the V8 E63 version. All very interesting, but our focus here will stay with the mainstream diesel variants that almost all buyers will want, and particularly on the four-cylinder E220D version. That's the one that you're probably going to want to look at first. Now, the pricing here is interesting, pitched around £3,000 above the key rivals that you're probably going to be considering, namely BMW's 520D Touring, Audi's A6 Avant 2-litre TDI Ultra, and Jaguar's XF Sport Brake 2-litre D 180 PS. In return, Mercedes offers more technology, higher residuals, and in the case of the Jaguar anyway, greater efficiency. So, your call. Find around £50,000 for the six-cylinder E350D variant and the premium over the BMW and Audi alternatives. The 530D and the A6 3-litre TDI Quattro 272 PS variant will remain at around £3,000. Jaguar's 3-litre V6 diesel option in the XF Sport Brake is more powerful, and that will cost around about the same as an E350D estate. Are there other alternatives worth considering in the full executive segment? Well, only Volvo's stylish V90. That will save you around £3,500 to £5,000 over a comparable E-Class estate model, but it won't be quite as economic. It has significantly less interior space, and it will depreciate much more rapidly. After all this consideration, we wouldn't be surprised if you decided that the Mercedes was the car for you in this tightly contested segment. Now, if that's the case, you're going to need to understand just how generous Mercedes has been with the standard spec. So let's take a look at that next. Now, as we mentioned earlier, mainstream E-Class estate buyers have a choice of two key trim levels, base SE or a sportier looking AMG line variant. Even if you stick with the SE, you get quite a lot. Outside, there are 5-spoke 17-inch alloy wheels, LED technology for the headlights and the rear lamp clusters, a parking pilot system which automatically steers you into spaces and which also includes a reversing camera. Other key features run to power folding mirrors, agility control suspension, Speedtronic cruise control with a variable speed limiter, and the dynamic select driving mode system which tweaks the throttle response, the steering feel and the gear change timings to suit the way that you want to drive. Moving inside, the SE model comes with leather upholstery and aluminium panels for the dash and door fittings. Whichever E-Class you want, heated seats with electric adjustment are included, along with keyless go ignition, auto headlamps and wipers, an auto dimming rear view mirror and an alarm. You also get a Garmin Map Pilot navigation system and a DAB digital radio tuner. And they're both viewed via the Audio 20 multimedia system's 8.4-inch central fascia monitor. Touch control buttons on the leather-wrapped 3-spoke steering wheel allow for hands-free operation of the stereo and the sat-nav, and there's 64-colour ambient lighting that bathes the cabin in your choice of shades. You can pay extra to optionally upgrade your E220D SE with larger 18-inch wheels, the air body control air suspension system, and the more sophisticated Command online infotainment system with its larger 12.3-inch central dash display and Apple CarPlay or Android Auto smartphone integration. Go for the six-cylinder E350D model though. All those extras come as standard, which does help to justify the high premium being charged for that bigger engine. If you move up a trim grade and go for the sportier AMG line spec level that's offered at a premium of around £2,500 over the SE level, the extra cash gets you quite a lot. There are larger titanium grey finished 19-inch alloy wheels, plus more dynamic AMG body styling and perforated brake discs with Mercedes-Benz lettering. Inside, the SE model's real leather is a little disappointingly replaced by man-made Artico hide, but it does cover the upper dashboard and belt lines as well, and it uses contrasting stitching for a classier feel, and that's further emphasised by black roof lining and open pore ashwood trim. At AMG line level, you also get stainless steel sports pedals, an AMG flat bottom steering wheel and a seat comfort package with electro-pneumatic four-way lumbar support and manual seat cushion depth adjustment. And finally, if you go for this all-terrain derivative, equipment highlights include air body control, air suspension and the all-terrain front and rear bumpers. Plus you also get an extra all-terrain driving setting as part of the Dynamic Select driving mode system, along with special 5 twin-spoke 20-inch wheels, an electrically retractable tow bar and extra matting, along with a stout liner for the boot. A feature we really like that's been built into that Command online infotainment system is what Mercedes calls Car2X communication. Now this is a mobile phone supported exchange of information system which will see your E-Class sending data on driving conditions back to a central hub, which then shares it with other Mercedes drivers. That means that in a way that's almost magical, this car will know in advance about things like icy conditions and traffic jams. Really clever. Plus, there is the usual Mercedes Me Connect remote online services package. Now this allows you to monitor many aspects of your car from your PC or smartphone. Almost everything, in fact, from its tyre pressure to its washer fluid level. With the Mercedes Me, you can lock or unlock the car from wherever you are. You can summon breakdown assistance. You can liaise with your dealer on servicing and even locate your E-Class model's position if you've forgotten where you parked it. For the first year of ownership, there's also a concierge service which will help you to find places like fuel stations and restaurants. As you'd expect from any prestige brand in this segment, there are a huge number of options. The most popular are grouped into two packs called Premium and Premium Plus. Now with the Premium bundle, you get keyless entry and ignition, along with hands-free boot opening and powered closing. You also enjoy front seat position memory and a panoramic glass sunroof with an electrically operated sliding front section. Upgrade to the Premium Plus package that comes as standard in this all-terrain model, and you also get a 13-speaker 590-watt Burmester stereo system and a multi-beam LED intelligent light system with cornering lights, along with adaptive high beam assist to make sure that oncoming traffic isn't dazzled at night. As for individual extras, well, we got plenty of them here. Larger families may well want the extra boot-mounted chairs that can make your E-Class Estate into a 7-seater. Bear in mind, though, that you can't have those on this all-terrain variant. You might also want to look at a head-up display, which projects vital driving information onto the windscreen so the driver can stay focused on the road ahead. Other optional features include more sophisticated thermotronic automatic climate control, a soft closing aid for the doors and the boot, privacy glass and a 360-degree camera which gives a bird's eye view from above to help with parking. You could also go for heated rear seats, and of course there's the usual range of tow bars and roof racks. We would also want to ask about the clever remote parking pilot system, which works using a downloadable smartphone app and allows a car to be moved in and out of garages and tight parking spaces remotely. You've got to have exactly the right model spec fitted for it to work though. As for really luxurious touches, well, softer Napa leather upholstery would be nice to have, and there's the option of rather unusual looking Designo piano lacquer cabin trim with strange flowing lines. Now you could replace that with a wood or metal weave finish if you wanted. There's also an optional air balance package which gives you optimized air filtering and a choice of 4 cabin fragrances. Staying with aesthetics, there's a choice of standard or Designo metallic paint finishes, and you can specify wheels right up to 20 inches in size. Enough with that, let's switch to safety, which down the years has always been a primary consideration for Mercedes with E-Class models. Let's give you some highlights from the standard kit tally in this regard. Let's start with active brake assist, which warns the driver of an impending collision and will brake automatically if there's no response. Now, testing has indicated that this whole setup will eradicate 20% of nose-to-tail accidents and will decrease their severity in a further 25% of cases. And there's more. All E-Class variants get crosswind assist that helps to stabilise the car in sudden side gusts of wind, and steer control steering assist that helps you to keep the wheel straight at cruising speeds. Attention assist will monitor your driving reactions to drowsiness, and the pre-safe program will tighten the seat belts, it'll close the windows, and will even adjust the seats in a fraction of a second if the stability system deems an accident inevitable. There's also an active bonnet to protect pedestrians, and the usual twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a knee bag for the driver. As you expect, tyre pressure monitoring and all the usual electronic aids for traction, braking and stability control are included too. Want to go further? Then you'll need to know that extra cost safety features are grouped into two options packs called Lane Tracking and Driving Assistance Plus. Now, the Lane Tracking package comes with two key features: Active Blind Spot Assist, which stops you from dangerously pulling out to overtake when you're on the move, and Active Lane Keeping Assist, which lets the driver know if the car's inadvertently wandering over road markings. Active Lane Keeping Assist will also gently steer the car back into lane if the driver doesn't intervene. Now, both these features also come with the preferable Driving Assistance Plus pack, and you'll need that pricier package if you're going to be able to try the semi-autonomous driving technology that Mercedes makes so much of with this 10th generation E-Class model. Now, to experience this, you'll need to be on a dual carriageway and have to have activated two of the Driving Assistance Plus package elements: Active Distance Assist Distronic and Active Steering Assist. Now, the Distronic feature is basically super advanced adaptive cruise control, which automatically regulates your distance to the car in front and can, if necessary, remotely slow the car with up to 50% of stopping power. Using a further active speed limit assist feature, it can also be set to adapt itself to the limits featured on speed signs that you pass. Active steering assist keeps you in the centre of your designated lane, and it will, if needed, apply subtle steering correction to ease you back to where you should be. Now, if you ignore this, warning signals from the Active Lane Keeping Assist system mentioned earlier will tell you that your E-Class has inadvertently drifted over those lane delineating lines. If you're trying the autonomous driving capability, you'll also want to experience the clever Active Lane Changing Assist system. Now, on a dual carriageway with the Active Distance Assist Distronic cruise control and Active Steering Assist operating, the car will overtake by itself. Yes, really. Just hold the indicator stalk for a couple of seconds and it will pull out to pass a slower vehicle and then slot itself back into lane as soon as it's safe to do so. Although the included Driving Assistance Plus package feature is the Evasive Steering Assist, and that scans the road ahead for pedestrians and supports you in making sudden steering manoeuvres to avoid them. Those pedestrians are also targeted by an upgraded Active Braking Assist system, which is embellished to be able to also look out for unexpected tailbacks and crossing traffic. There's more in the Driving Assistance Plus package too. Now, we've already mentioned the Active Blind Spot Assist setup, and the pack also includes upgrades to the standard pre-safe system we referenced earlier, and that's there to better protect you in a collision. Pre-safe Plus helps specifically with vehicles running to the back of you, and if necessary, it'll lock the brakes on standstill to prevent the car from being pushed into danger. And Pre-safe Impulse Side uses a lateral impulse to prepare the front occupants for a side impact, thereby reducing the risk of injury. It's all very reassuring. You'd expect this 10th generation W213 series E-Class Estate model to represent a big step forward when it comes to running cost efficiency. It is, after all, around 100 kilos lighter than its predecessor, and in its volume guises, it boasts a completely fresh 2-litre diesel engine that must be frugal enough to power much smaller Mercedes models. On top of that, this E-Class uses a much more efficient 9G-tronic plus 9-speed automatic gearbox. Now, even if you know all of this going in, the figures returned by the volume E200D and E220D variants are still pretty impressive. 67.3 mpg on the combined cycle and 109 grams per kilometre of CO2. Let me just put that to some kind of perspective for you. Now, that showing is similar to the kind of return that you get from an automatic 2-litre diesel-powered Ford Focus. More pertinently perhaps though, it means that 4-cylinder diesel versions of the E-Class Estate can offer class-leading fuel and CO2 returns when compared against rival BMW 520d Touring, Jaguar XF Sport Brake 2-litre D and Audi A6 Avant 2-litre DDI competitors. And in comparison to cars like that, you'll also put out less CO2, so this E-Class should be cheaper to tax. Bear in mind, as usual, that these figures depend on your not upgrading the standard wheel size, and do remember also that if you specify 4MATIC 4-wheel drive on an E220D, the figures will inevitably take quite a hit, falling to 57.7 mpg and 126 grams per kilometre. In contrast, the pokier 6-cylinder diesel E350D variant we're trying here uses one of the brand's older engines and will therefore lag a little behind its competitors in efficiency terms until Mercedes introduces the more modern 286 bhp 3-litre V6 diesel power plant that it fits to its S-Class model. To be specific, you're looking at 46.3 mpg on the combined cycle and 162 grams per kilometre of CO2, readings that fall to 42.8 mpg and 174 grams per kilometre if you go for 4MATIC 4-wheel drive. In this all-terrain variant, the figures are 41.5 mpg and 179 grams per kilometre. Now, we should also mention the fuel returns from the minority interest petrol engines found in the sporting Mercedes-AMG models. And now you might be surprised at the relative frugality of the E43 4MATIC 3-litre 6-cylinder petrol bi-turbo model. It manages 32.8 mpg on the combined cycle and 197 grams per kilometre of CO2. As for both versions of the V8-powered E63 4MATIC flagship variant, well, these are restricted to 30.1 mpg on the combined cycle and 214 grams per kilometre of CO2. Like its diesel competitors, this car uses an AdBlue system to cleanse its black pump fuel of impurities using an additive from a reservoir that will need to be topped up during regular services. And of course, there is an eco start-stop function to cut the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Plus, there's a gliding feature which disconnects the engine from the transmission to save fuel at cruising speeds. In addition, of course, the driver will need to play his or her part. Obviously, to get anywhere near the returns we've quoted, you'll need to set the dynamic select driving mode system into its eco setting. This marginally limits the accelerator pedal curve and also slightly restricts the output of the seat heating, the heated rear window and the air conditioning too. Now, you can also bring up two options in the instrument binnacle here which will help. There's a consumption screen which shows your average fuel figure, and an eco display grades your driving based on acceleration, decelerating and constancy of speed, showing in real time the bonus frugality you've achieved through careful driving since the start of your journey. There's also a fuel consumption section on the fascia's central media display screen, giving you graphical evidence of your success or otherwise in achieving maximum efficiency. What else? Well, we'll tell you that the comprehensive 3-year unlimited mileage warranty is built on by Mercedes' Mobilo scheme, which delivers breakdown cover for up to 30 years, as long as you continue to have your car serviced at a Mercedes main dealer. And it's also worth knowing that your maintenance outlay can be kept a little in check by going for the optional service care package, which takes care of routine maintenance, spreading the cost of regular servicing and also guaranteeing the price of parts and labour for up to 4 services and covering the cost of all recommended service items like brake fluid, spark plugs, air filters, fuel filters and screen wash. There's also an assist dashboard service indicator that monitors engine use and tells you exactly when a garage visit's due. And it's also worth mentioning that the Mercedes Me remote online services package that comes as part of the Command online infotainment system includes remote self-diagnostic capability, which enables your E-Class to monitor wear and tear items and to alert your local dealer to let you know when something needs seeing to. You can also insure your car through Mercedes, although most company drivers will have that included in their lease cost. If you do pay the insurance on your car, well, you'll want to know about the insurance groupings. So we'll start with the minority interest Mercedes-AMG petrol models. The E43 4MATIC Estate is rated at Group 42E to 43E. For the V8 E63 4MATIC Estate, the ratings vary between Group 46E and 49E depending on derivative and spec. Switching to the diesels, the E200D is rated at Group 28E or 29E with AMG line trim. For E220D models, the ratings vary between Group 31 and 33E. For the E350D, it's Group 41E or 42E with 4MATIC four-wheel drive. This E350 all-terrain derivative is rated at Group 43E. As for the question of depreciation, well, independent experts reckon that this E220D would retain 45.2% of its value after 3 years and 60,000 miles, with a standard version of the E350D that showing would improve to 48.5%. The residual value of an E-Class E350D all-terrain estate model like this one is rated at 44.3% after 3 years and 30,000 miles. Now that is a showing comparable or better than the best that could be managed by direct rivals. Without any hesitation, we can say that this W213 Series E-Class Estate remains a cutting-edge statement of Mercedes style and technology. And that makes it a very serious contender for your attention in the full-sized executive estate sector. A completely fresh level of sophistication and refinement has been achieved this time around, and the result is a car that will not only appeal to Mercedes core buyers, but should also have the ability to attract new customers looking for something that'll take large loads while covering huge mileages in luxurious comfort. There's no doubt that this E-Class station wagon will rack up those distances without breaking the bank either. The latest generation 2-litre turbo diesel engine is a very significant motor of this model line, not only because it powers the best seller in the range, it makes this car one of the cleanest and most frugal contenders in the segment, with efficient returns which will make a lot of sense to the business drivers who will make up the bulk of buyers. Unlike rivals, Mercedes hasn't compromised overall space in pursuit of sleeker styling, yet this car still makes a compelling driveway statement. And the optional provision, unique in this segment, of 7-seat capability will also be welcome to larger, wealthy families. Of course, pricing is pitched at premium levels and the handling prioritises comfort rather than anything more dynamic. But if these two issues don't bother you, there's plenty here to like. Which means that if you want to carry properly hefty loads in a car of this kind, yet you want to do so with more than a modicum of style, this one remains a segment benchmark. It's better by design.